So let me get this up here. Light is still bad. Oh, she might be stuck. That might be as good as it's gonna get. Okay, hi Diamond. All right, so today we're gonna go on our first little draping adventure. And we're gonna practice. So nothing will be done today. You have the weekend to practice some more, okay? You all are familiar with this bodice, right? The waist and shoulder dart and waist for the front. You guys have made this one, right? So you know what this feels like, but like this, right? So we're gonna essentially do another bodice, and the only difference is we're gonna make, instead of doing the basic one at the shoulder, we're gonna have our dart move to the bust, okay? A side dart. So you'll have two different versions, and once you know how to do this one, you'll be able to do all the other darts on February the following Tuesday. I think we do like the dancing darts in fabric, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so there's a lot of preparation that needs to happen before we start draping. So everyone has their panels. Yes, the wide one is the front, the narrow one is the back. So you don't need the narrow one just yet. You just need your wide one, okay? And we're gonna prep our panels with some guidelines to help us drape, all right? We're also, so essentially what happens is this: we're gonna go and put the muslin on the mannequin. We're gonna start the drape, look at it. You're gonna take it off. You're gonna do it again. We're still not gonna mark anything, okay? Then you'll get used to it. Then we did that twice, right? In the second class. Then we're gonna do the back. And we're gonna pause. Did they do it twice, the back as well? The back twice. Then we're gonna do it one last time. We're still not gonna mark anything because I wish we had the first class document, and you guys can, if you want to, like your first one, your second one, and by the time you do your third one, it's like, oh my gosh, just in less than a 2-hour period, the amount of improvement is kind of crazy. So that's why we're going to do it. At the end, you'll end up working on something that looks like this, all trued, all ready to go and to put on paper if you wanted to put it on paper, okay? But this takes a lot of time and takes a lot of work to get to this point and to get it this neat, okay? And another thing we're gonna learn how to do is see all these stripes on this bodice. Just your other classmates learned how to draw straight grain today in class. So so if you can learn how to draw straight grain, then it means you don't have to pull straight grain. So you can practice that as well. But you can only draw straight grain. You can't draw cross grain. So, but we're going to show you how to plant those cross grains today. Okay. So reminder, we're going to only drape on her right, not her heart side of the mannequin today. Okay. So we're going to close our eyes and we're going to do a little poll so nobody can see who did what. So I just want to know who actually, so close your eyes and raise your hand if you took time to watch the video. Okay, down. Raise your hand if you tried to look at the PDF, but it wasn't all there. Okay, great. All right, that's it. So we're videotaping this one, so if you need reference, it's there. So you'll have this video, you have Miss Carlotti's video, and then you have the PDF from the chapter in the book. All right. Okay, so with your front, I need you to take your panel and lay it in front of you so that straight grain is toward you. Okay. And get it on a grid, and hopefully you'll at least have at least the top part of it completely plumb. I know it takes some time to get your panels completely blocked. Okay. All right. So this is, of course, is the grain that you guys pulled right here. Yes. And mine just happens to be drawn in instead. Okay. The first thing we're going to put in on this panel is our cross grain. And the cross grain is essentially represents the bust level. Okay. So everyone's bust level is in the same spot. So if you're looking at your panel, right hand, come down from the right hand side 11 inches. It should be right in the middle of your panel actually. And place a little dot or a little cross mark right there. Okay. All right. And then you can do one of two things. You can make sure everything is plumb on the grid of the table, and you can transfer that 11 inches using the grid, and or in combination, if you want to be super accurate, you take your ruler and you square a line straight from center front so it all lines up, and you create your cross grain at a perfect right angle. Okay. So this is the architecture part of draping, that you're essentially establishing all your plumb lines so that your building, which is your bodice, will not tilt or torque or hang funny on the body. Okay. So this is kind of like the drafting or the architectural side of draping. So we came down 11 inches. To mark our cross grain. And this is your worksheet. So you can take notes on this muslin. You can make little measurements. You can do whatever you need to, so that when you review this panel, it'll be your best resource. Okay. It'll have your great marks. It'll have your bad marks on it. Okay. So mine is kind of red on screen. So this red guy right here now, this is my cross grain. Okay. Or you can also call it your bust level. Sounds good? All right, this green line right here is going to end up being, as you can see on the Trude one, this green line is going to end up representing the middle of your dart leg. So that's why I put it in a color, because it's not going anywhere. It's pretty permanent. So you can either put it in a color or you can put it in pencil, because that line's going to be the same line for everybody. Okay. To find that line, that green line, so we use green for guidelines. So green for guidelines, blue for true. Get it? That's why we have all the color pencils. All right. So for the green guideline, you're going to measure from the center front of your mannequin to the apex point along the top of your bust tape. So you need to get your tape measure. There's a couple of extra ones hanging on the pencil sharpener if you don't have one. So you're going to measure from center front to your bust point and just put a little dot on your cross grain. That's what. It's fine. I was using yours, I think. You guys doing okay at home? I know you don't have a grid table.
Yeah, I'm good. I have like a kind of, I don't know, just like a store type mannequin. So it's not the right size, and it doesn't really have like the polyfill on the inside. So it's a little bit harder, but I'm just gonna make it work for today, and I'll be back in Richmond tomorrow.
It'll just be a nice rehearsal for you.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, so everybody has their mark. Like what did we get? 3 1/2, 3 5/8. What did we get? Okay. All right, great. So you need to draw a perfectly parallel on straight line to center front, this green line. Okay. So you can do that two ways. You can just kind of measure whatever that measurement is and dot it out and draw it in. Or once you start practicing and you get really good at drawing grain, once you have your your dot marked, you'll learn today how to just drag. Oops, not that one. A perfect grain line. Okay, so we have some muslin at the end of class for everybody to try drawing perfect grain lines. Okay. Yeah, there's a tape. So, or you can just, like I said, if yours was 3.5, you would just measure your 3.5 at there, and then the 3.5 there, connect it. You can connect it in green, you can connect it in pencil, doesn't matter at this point. I'm just doing it in color so you guys can understand. Okay. All right. And if you want to even write on there that this is the center dart leg, just so you remember, you can label it. Okay. All right. The next mark we have to put on our red, on my red cross grain, measures from center front to side seam. So measure from your center front, cross your tape to your side seam, and whatever that measurement is, add 1/8 inch. Okay. So again, you're going to measure on your mannequin from center front to your side seam little braid, whatever that measurement happens to be, top of the tape, Alex, happens to be, add 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Measure on the top of the tape. Okay. So this line that we drew, the one that's red on my screen, that red line is going to set right on top of your black tape. And I like having the line on top of the black tape because you can kind of then see how the tape is lying underneath that line. It gives you a nice visual of it being parallel to the floor. Okay. Oh, did it fall off? Let me get you some ribbon. I taped a lot of them in place for you guys because they were curling. And our friend Cameron has a whole roll of draping tape. All right. And after you have that line measured, what did y'all get? What's the original measurement? 9 and what? 9. Okay. So whatever, if it's 9.5, add your 1/8 and drop a dot. And then where that dot is, another straight line parallel to the other 2 lines. Okay. So essentially you have 2 grain lines, 3 grain lines going across, right? So this is your original. The green one was the one you measured to your apex. That's going to be your center dart leg. And then this line, and then this line is your side seam mark, and you can just dot it in. Okay, so you can just see how mine is really, really faint. You don't really see it too much because that's just there to give us an idea of where the side seam is. That's not going to be our real side seam. That's why it's not in a color. So you can just kind of like find your measurement and just kind of dash in just to give you an idea of where that side seam is going to land on your mannequin. Okay. All right. And the last line we're going to put in is a guideline right here, this pink one. Mine's in pink, yours can be in, green again, or it can just be just in pencil because it's just a guideline. This is going to help us maintain grain so that everyone's dart intake is almost exactly the same. Okay. So essentially you've started building your building, right? You've got this important beam so holding up the side seam. You've got these 2 important beams holding up the center of the building. And then of course you have your center front grain line holding up the major front of the building. All right, so everything is perfectly straight. Okay, the last one we're going to draw is this fuchsia one right here. And to find the fuchsia one, it's the center between the apex and your side seam. So you can measure like a cave person, which means you just take one spot, bring it over to the other, increase it, and that gives you your center. You don't even have to measure. Or you can take your ruler and do your fractions and divide it in half and find your center. I just fold it in half, see my crease, and then drop another straight grain or a parallel line on my muslin. Okay. So we had one line that went from apex straight down. We had the second mark, which was side seam plus 1/8, and then we dashed in a light guideline to indicate side seam, but it's not going to be our real side seam. And then we found the distance between the side seam and the apex, the middle of that, for another guideline to keep our building straight. Okay, we don't want leaning Tower of Pisa bodices. We don't want bodices that are tilting to one side. Okay, so that's how you're going to prep the front panel. Does that make sense? For almost every drape. Okay. All right, once you're ready, you can press under your center front seam allowance, either with your finger, or you can crease it on the edge of the table, or take your ruler, however it is you crease your center fronts. Okay, and you got some pins loaded up into your mannequin neck, I hope, so we can start the process. All right. All right, the first pin is going to go in the apex. So that mark you put, that first mark you marked on your cross grain, okay? So you're going to find that apex point on top of your bust tape and land that dot right on that princess and bust tape line and stick in a pin. And if you want to, you can stick in, which is a V pin, which is you take 2 pins at the same time and make like a little V to hold them together so they never really shift, okay? So it's like a nice anchor point to hold that bust in. Then you're going to go ahead and continue pinning the cross grain all the way across your tape, okay? So I put a pin right here at my side seam. You had a little mark for your side seam. That should land right on the braid of your mannequin, right here. And see that, you can see that my red line is resting right on top of that bust tape. If you like, you can kind of take a couple of pins and actually just kind of anchor it right on top of that bust tape if you like to keep it super secure. And then you'll end your cross grain right at your center front. And then you can walk your center front grain up to your neckline and anchor the neckline. All right, and we'll pause right there and let you guys get caught up. Okay, so first pin was at the apex point. Then we smooth the cross grain over to the side seam to anchor it so it floats on top of the tape. And then we're going to work the cross grain the other direction and get it so it sets right on the bust tape towards center front. And then we're going to anchor center front. It's ideally, yeah, that way you can actually see it resting on the tape. Okay. Some people like to do the middle of the tape, but that's just too, it's easier just right on the top, you know, like a shelf. And when you drape, you don't need a whole lot of pins. Just like you don't need a whole lot of markings. You just need the information, the least amount of information to transfer your shapes and your curves and your connections. It's just like when you're going to be working in Illustrator to draw your flats with your pen tool. essentially you're just giving, Miss Kessler will tell you, the fewer the path points, the cleaner the drawing. So the fewer the pins, the cleaner the drape sometimes, the fewer the markings, the cleaner the muslin. So we don't want to overwork or overmark our muslin in any way. So, but that takes practice because you get anxious, you get where you don't have enough stuff in there, but you'll realize where that balance is after you've done it a few times, okay? All right, so just to review, we have our cross grain, which is so important because if the garment is not parallel to the floor, it's never going to be worn well, okay? So it has to be parallel to the floor. Then it also has to be perpendicular to the floor. So that's why we've established the center front grain after we did the cross grain, okay? All right. The next thing we're going to do, since we're anchoring straight grains, is we're going to position the little guideline that we put in between the apex and the side seam. Sorry, this line right here. So you're going to have to like look at your line and make sure it's hanging, excuse me, perpendicular to the floor, smooth it down to the waist. And this is the position of your ease. Remember you put a little bit of waist ease in your skirt waistlines? You guys remember doing that? This is the same position and the same amount. So I call it an ant amount of ease, which is 2 little ants, which is 2 1/16, which is 1/8 of an inch of ease, right? So you just make sure you step back and you make sure it's plumb to the floor. So you just smooth it straight down into the waist, make sure it's straight. And then after you get it straight, just pick up a little tiny piece of muslin away from your purple line or whatever line color you have, and then jump it over to create that little pinch of ease for about 1/8 of an inch at your waist. And then you can clip that line to release the tension in the waistline a little bit. So that line serves a lot of purposes. Helps us make sure our bodice is on grain, helps us maintain the bodice is actually centered on the panel. It's our ease placement and gives us a line to cut so that we can release the tension at the waistline. How you guys doing on screen? Diamond, you okay? If you want to, you can show us your drape.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I have I hold up really high when I'm standing up.
Oh, there she is. Okay, good.
I have my front pinned. The side of this one slopes kind of weird, so I don't know how accurate I'm gonna be able to get this.
Right. Well, you're not marking anything today. So
yeah, no, I'm just gonna
yeah, use these panels again. Yes, great. So I'm gonna go around, check on everybody.
Do the thing that you said down here with the ant.
So make sure she's perpendicular. So perpendicular, right? Smooth her down. And then I just pick up. So if it's an 8th, a 16th and a 16th, I pick up a little 16th and just jump it across to another 16th, like that. Okay. And then you can slice on your blue line to release the tension. Oh, it looks good. Yeah, so put your finger there. So go about a 16th of an away from your pencil line.
Like this way?
Like this. This is why we practice it. It's like take your ease and go, okay, and sink it in there. So your plum, I love all these colors. So just go 1/16 of an inch away, jump another, ding, stuck. And then you can cut that and it'll release the tension. Okay. Yep, pull her up. And if you need to anchor her, actually put some pins to hold her on top of that tape. Okay. So here, you're just making her straight and you're just taking a little tiny pinch of ease right there. Okay, and just pinning that in place, and then you can slice that line to release the, oh, I like your muslin, but you're on the wrong grain. Yeah, you're on cross grain. So don't mark anything yet. We'll just flip it over. Just go through the steps right now. You can fix it afterwards, okay? We do it on the other side. Yeah, so she's going to be perpendicular, yeah. Then So if you want a 1/16 of an inch twice, so I go a 1/16 of an inch away from that line, take it over to the other 1/16 of an inch and just tilt my pin. And there's your ease, nice and delicate. And then you cut that to release the tension. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that ease line, that placement, if you were doing a darted or a darted skirt, you would have that little pinch there, and you would have your bodice joined to it, and all those things would be at the same exact spot. Okay, so you're like mapping out the entire torso, and you would have a waistline seam. Whereas you traced off your other foundations yesterday, and you all had one continuous torso where the waistline seam went away, right? So a little bit different. Okay, how y'all feeling? Feeling pretty good?
Can I see like a close up of that ease line, possibly?
Can you do it again?
I just want to see like how it like
Okay.
landed.
Yep. So there's mine's purple right here. You see it?
Okay.
Perpendicular. There's my waist tape. I can feel it, right? So I'm just gonna like whatever a 1/16 is, like eyeball a 1/16 away from one side, and then jump it over and pin it in place. So a little tiny pinch. Some students take a big old chunky pinch of these, and your waist you're like, my waist is too big, because you all were talking about how you're not sure how tight to make something, or if something's too loose on the mannequin. And essentially, when you're draping these bodices, you want your muslin to just kind of like float ever so slightly. There should be a little bit of air between the mannequin and your muslin. You don't want to be, it's not cling wrap draping. Okay, not yet, at least. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So now we're pretty anchored. Yes? 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 All right. Take it off and do it again. Take it, unpin it, do it again, all by yourself. All right. So we're going to have to fit the neck next, okay? So after you've gotten all your grain lines situated, waistline's kind of balanced, cross grain looks great, we're going to make the neckline nice and smooth, okay? If a garment does not fit well at the neck and shoulder intersection, if it's a garment that has that area in it, it's never going to set right. It's going to tip back and forth, or it's going to tip side to side, and you might have even had something that doesn't seem quite right. It always falls back, or it falls forward, or it falls off the shoulder. So to get our neckline smooth, because you want it super smooth right here, if you take your fingers and just kind of like run them along the neckline of your dress form, you can kind of make a little crease, and you're going to see this little triangle of fullness fold. Yes, on your mannequin. This is where you need your scissors, okay? And kind of make a crease in your neckline. Take a peek at it and cut away, but don't cut, but leave at least an inch away from your crease, okay? Take your fingers, crease where the neckline is sewn on your mannequin. Look at that little crease, and then trim away about it, leaving an inch. And then after you have that inch, then you'll be able to start clipping carefully, don't over clip, so that your neckline will start lying smooth, okay? And you can clip away a little more as necessary. But you want the neckline to be smooth like icing on a cake. Just like you want your waistline on your skirt to be nice and smooth. So this is like a little tiny waistline, if you want to think about it that way. All right. After you've got your neckline nice and smooth, the next place you're going to put a pin, and you should have a nail head there, is at the neck and shoulder intersection. Okay, so that's a really important nail head that you have right there, because both the front and the back will have to align with that nail. So go ahead and smooth your neck all the way to that nail head and sink in a pin. And now you've got your neckline in position. And if you ever need any assistance, just raise up your hand, we'll come over to you. Okay, so you did your E's. All right, so you pin. Did you fix your thing? He asked me if you fixed it. Okay, because got it. Michael, I said, did she get it fixed? He said, I don't know. You might want to put a couple of like a pin or toe just to hold your cross grain on your tape. Great. All right, so now you got to fix your neck, right? So when you do that, if you go like this, you can kind of put a little crease there. And then when you see that crease, then you're gonna, don't cut yours because you have to turn yours the other way. You would cut that and you would start clipping into it so that neckline lies smooth and you get rid of all this excess. But for now, don't clip yours yet until you turn yours, okay? You just put a pin there to hold it, but you can kind of see where the neckline is gonna fit, okay?
Just double check.
Yeah, you can clip some more.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't, if you want to, you can put your finger there and you don't clip past your finger. Yeah, that way you won't over clip your neckline, okay? Just trim all that excess out. Yep. Diamond, do you want to show me how yours is looking? Are you ready? Okay. All right, so after we do go through the basic bodice, we're going to essentially kind of duplicate the dancing darts that you guys did flat. We're going to do that after we learn all of this after about a week. But just to give you a glimpse of what that's like. So this is the bodice again that you guys have done, right? The dart is up here, okay? And you have the waist dart here. So we're going to do the waist dart on this bodice here as well, but instead of the dart being here, all that fullness is going to come and go on a side bust dart. And as you can almost start to see it. You can see all this fullness falling over her armhole. If you just lifted that up and landed it on her shoulder, there's your shoulder dart. Super easy, right? That's all it takes is to lift that fabric and tell it to land on the shoulder and you have a dart, okay? But you guys have done that one, so you don't have to do it yet. And we'll practice putting other fullness at that dart, at that area as well. All right, but for now, we're going to work on positioning. We're going to get the shoulder nice and smooth. Oh, forgot to mark their armholes. Okay, before we go any farther, I need you, I'm so sorry. I need you to release your side seam because we need to mark your arm plate because you guys, your girls have no tattoos yet. So she's going to get a couple more tattoos today, okay? Essentially you have on your arm, and you might've talked about this, but you might've forgotten, it's the arm plate and the arm ridge, okay? And so the plate, of course, is the metal part, but the ridge is like where you would actually sew in a sleeve, this top edge right here, okay? So I need you to mark on the end of your shoulder, the top of that ridge. So if you look at your, like on this one, you can see it really easy because it's so dirty, like that right there is the top of her armhole ridge. And then for the front, it's right there in line with the screw. You want to put another mark there and a cross mark. And then the same thing for the back. Take the screw line over and put a cross mark on her back armhole. So 3 marks for the armhole. The top of the shoulder, at screw level on the front ridge, and at screw level on the back ridge, okay? Sorry about that. All right, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, go ahead and smooth the top of her shoulder. Just push the fabric over her shoulder and land a pin at the end of the shoulder and the top of the armhole. Just to kind of hold the shoulder in place. Okay. All right, so now we're going to judge the muslin or shift it, move it so that you create two different darts. Okay, we're going to start with the dart you're probably most familiar with, and that's the waist dart. Okay, so the waist dart, you're going to focus on where you took your pinch of ease, center front, and then all that dart excuse me, all that dart intake goes right into your guideline. Pinch, just like that. So everyone's leg is already marked. The center leg is already marked. You just take all of your fullness, pinch it, and then you're going to put a pin in vertically. So I hope you read the draping guidelines on how to pin. So for this one, you're going to pin it in so it's up and down. It's about 7/8 to 3/4 in depth for me. I'm not sure how deep it is on your other mannequins because your measurements aren't exactly the same. But if your waist is pulling or if it's fighting you, you can trim off about 2 inches off the bottom. And you can kind of clip into your waistline to release any tension. So you have a nice smooth waistline. Okay. So again, working from where you took your pinch of ease, working from center front. And all you're doing is making all those come together and find a dart. And that center leg, that line you drew is your center dart leg. It just goes right into a dart. Okay. So practice doing that. And so the reason we're doing it this way, you all, is because when you watch, for those of you who watch the video, she does it so fast. It's so advanced, even though it's like a basic thing, that you can't just do it on your first try. I mean, your muslins would look like runned over a squirrel if you try to do all this at one time, and it's just not worth it. It's frustrating, and you don't really learn that much because it was almost too hard to learn anything. So that's why we're doing it slow and over again, so you can kind of remember the steps. So it becomes kind of programmed, like again, like I said, intuitive in your draping process. So hopefully, how deep are your darts? Let's just get some call outs here. How deep is yours? Catherine, did you get your dart in yet? Yours about 1/2 inch. Anybody else is deeper? Okay. Yours sounds really narrow. I think you pinched too much ease. Yeah. Yep. So you just need a 16th. You have a whole quarter. So that if you did the math, that would fix it. So pick up your ease. So if this is your placement, just go right next to your pencil line, lift it up and flip it over. And there's your ease. And then there's the extra for your waist dart. Okay. All right. Okay, so that pin that you stuck in up and down, right in the seam line, when we do end up marking that pin will represent both sides of your dart legs. Okay, and again, this is your center dart leg. All right, now that you have the first quarter of your waistline kind of smoothed, now you can smooth the rest of it from beyond the pinch of ease all the way over. Just take your finger, run it along the waistline tape until it lands on the braid at the side seam. So take your finger, run it along the waistline tape until you touch the braid of your side seam, and then sink in some pins. I like to sink in a V again as well. So I sink in my V pins when I want something to really not move. So that's like the apex, maybe the shoulder, definitely the waist at side seam. I don't want those areas to shift. So that extra pin kind of helps keep it super steady. Okay. All right. Now we're going to drop our side seam pins again and let just how we took the fullness from left to right and landed it in a waist dart. We're going to take fullness from shoulder to side seam and collapse it into a side dart. And that line you drew as your cross grain, that is your center dart leg. So essentially do the same thing, control all that extra fullness and create it into a dart. So you're going to release your side seam pins. And then all of this is going to drop down from the armhole, and the rest of it is going to raise up from the side seam. And you're going to get a dart right on the cross grain. And it's going to drop below your tape, and that's okay. And just like with your waist dart, all you're going to do is sink in one pin as if it were in the sew line of the dart legs, just to anchor that dart right there. And if you like, you could put a pin horizontal to the side seam to kind of hold your side seam up so you can kind of envision what it's going to look like.
Miss Guthrie, how far along the bust line should we remove the pins? Like, should we remove them all the way to the apex?
Yes, you have to drop the whole cross grain so it can tilt off of the shoulder. Yes.
Okay, great.
And you don't need to mark the ends of any of these darts because we drew those lengths on the table. So all you need is the end points of the darts for this drape. If you were doing a super fitted drape, like an understructure, then you could go in there and really shape that dart. It gets really pointy at the apex, but that's okay. But that's not the exercise, but you can drape a dart that way, but the dart legs are curved. Okay, but we're doing all straight dart legs for this first drape. Okay. All right. And then the last thing you have to ensure with the ease is that you have ease across the chest. Okay. You might have noticed either like a shirt, a woven shirt or something that feels really tight right here. Do you get these little puckers near your armhole? That's because not enough ease has been given across chest. So across chest is right there at your screw level. Okay. So we're going to give her a little pinch of ease also right near her screw level. So remember that little cross mark that you put in at your front armhole? Yes. Jump in about an inch towards center front and take a little another ant pinch of ease right there, just in front of the armhole. Like right there. You can come up and see mine too if you need to. And that's going to ensure that it doesn't get too tight across the chest. Okay. Again, find your cross mark, drag your finger over about an inch, pick up that little ant bite of ease and put a pin up and down to hold that ease in place. Okay. So don't ever mark an armhole until you've added that little bit of ease in when you go to mark up your drapes. And that's just for the front. The back is a little different. Okay. So at this point, you're almost ready to mark your drape. Okay. So what I want you to do now is I want you to release all of your darts and do it one more time. Okay. Get used to putting your darts in again. So I'm going to undo my side dart. I'm going to undo my waist dart. You can leave your ease there if you like. And some students like to actually put like a little E for where they positioned their E so they know exactly where it was before, like a little map mark. Okay. If you want to do that. So undo your darts and practice with your fingers and do that pinching and placing and moving of fullness again so you get fit. All right, we're going to start looking at the back. We're not going to mark anything on the front, but just so you can see when next week, you're going to get your bodice to this level, okay? So you see I have a trued armhole, there's my shoulder, my neck, there's that guideline where we put the pinch of ease, right there, you can see it right there. Here's our dart, closed, there's the cross grain that we put our dart. So this is how it will look when it's all trued and ready next week, okay? All right. So for our back panels, if you want to grab your back panels and put your straight grain again towards you so we can mark your back panel. And again, line it up on a grid. So we can get our cross grains in. Okay. All right, so we have our 1 inch there. All right, one of the things we're gonna have to do before we start putting this on your mannequin is adjusting your shoulder blade level, your SBL, okay? That's essentially the cross grain for the back panel, just like your bust level was the cross grain for the front, okay? So on your mannequins, you're gonna have to lower your tape so that the top of the tape measures from center back neck right here, 4 inches there. I think some of you have them too high, and then you're gonna adjust your tape accordingly, make sure it's parallel to the floor. So if your tape is not at 4 inches, I need you to adjust it so that your tape is at 4 inches, okay? All right, we're gonna plant some marks on your back panel. Okay, so as you can see, the yours has no marks on it yet. So you have the grain line is closest to the front of the table. All right. So the first mark we're going to put is 3 inches down from the top edge. So working from your left hand down, put a mark at 3 inches, and that's where we're going to anchor the neck. So left hand moves down the panel for 3 inches. Just put a little cross mark, and that's going to be your neckline. You want to put it in there. And then down from your end, from your 3 inches, go down your 4 inches and put another cross mark. And that cross mark will represent the tape that you just adjusted on your mannequin. And then do the same thing you did for your cross grain. After you find your mark, make sure it's a plumb and perpendicular line and draw in that cross grain across the panel at the 4 inches, okay? At the 4 inches, draw your cross grain, which is your shoulder blade level. So 3 inches down for the neck, cross mark, then 4 inches down from that mark for your cross grain. And then take your ruler and create a perfectly squared line all the way across the panel. Okay. All right. Now I need you to measure from the center back along your waist, along your, your shoulder tape, from center back all the way over to your back armhole ridge. Okay, so along the top of your tape, center back to your armhole ridge, and whatever that measurement is, how much do you think we're going to add? 1/8 of an inch. Okay. All right, that's just a cross mark. That's it. That's just a placeholder. Okay. And when we go to put that piece of muslin on the mannequin, she will land right there on your tape at your cross mark on your mannequin. Okay. All right. So now we have to give us a plumb line so that we can maintain the grain like we did for the front and establish our ease. So remember we had that extra line outside the dart that we dropped to make sure it's perpendicular to the floor to pinch our ease. We need one of those on the back as well. How to find that mark is this. Go to your arm ridge mark with your finger and then work towards center back for 1 1/4 inches. So from your armhole ridge, move in 1 1/4 inches, put a mark, and then drop another straight grain right there. Okay. Yes, and it's just a cross mark on your cross grain. Yes. Yep, from here is your arm ridge mark. Yes, plus 1/8. And again, you can just plot it out by measuring it down a couple of spots and connecting that line. Or once you're ready to, or once you start practicing drawing your grain, you would just find your mark and you would just drag your pencil and create that straight grain. I find it very therapeutic. I wish you could draw cross grain, but you can't. You can only draw straight grain. Okay. And again, you can write this stuff right on your muslin. This is your practice. This is not the one you're going to turn in for assignment number 2. Right. And then when you're ready, you can start creasing under your 1-inch seam allowance at straight grain. So there's been a lot of math. So I also have a stack of draping books this tall, if anybody ever wanted to peruse. All of these techniques have come from this book, that book, this demo, this, and so I try to put them all in together so that you're getting like the best of all the different takes on doing this. There's so many ways to drape a bodice. This is not the only way to drape, but this is, I think, is the most step-by-step easy. So then you can just figure out what you want to do after the fact. After you know how to land everything, how to mark everything, that the principles is all you really need to know at this point. Okay. Okay. So if you've turned under your seam allowance at center back, you can, again, just like with the front, we're going to anchor it at the shoulder blade level and center back, and then up at your neck. So I've put a V of pins. I put 2 pins at each area. So at the top of the shoulder blade tape, and then up here at the center back neck. And then you can establish your cross grain. You have a little bit of ease there, so it's going to float across that tape, and you can anchor your armhole ridge mark right on your armhole ridge. And then again, if you like it, you can also put a pin or 2 so that cross grain stays right on that tape, and you're evenly distributing the ease. Looks like acupuncture. The next step would be to anchor center back all along center back, spacing your pins about four inches or so apart, just getting it so she has more acupuncture down her back. All right. We doing okay? So the next part, since we have that horizontal grain nice and stationary and stabilized, we can either work above the grain line or we can work slightly below the grain line, but we're gonna go above just like we did with the front and work on that neck area, okay? So just like with the front neck, take your fingers and try to kind of trace where the neckline seam is on your mannequin so you'll know how much to cut away so you don't over clip, okay? So be really careful. And people usually overclip near the nail at the neck and shoulder. So just be really careful you don't cut too close to the nail at the neck and shoulder. Again, you want it as smooth as you can get it until you land right on that nail. You doing okay at home, Diamond and Megan?
Yes. Should we still trim so that the area above the neckline is about a 1 inch before we like clip inward?
Exactly. Yes, exactly how you treated the front neck.
Okay.
Good job. Good job. Draping is messy, so we have to be clean more stuff. Okay, so I just want to show you all something as you're doing that. So we are doing the shoulder dart as you guys did in your pattern making class. But just to show you that the other basic foundation can have a neck dart instead of a shoulder dart. And just like we move the fullness around, you can just simply take that fullness that was going to go in the shoulder and it goes right into the neck. And it's really, really pretty having that neck dart right there. You can see how easy it is just to position that. So you can have fullness at the neck for the dart or fullness at the shoulder. It's, you know, it's a design choice or a basic bodice choice. But for us, we're going to land our dart on the shoulder right on the princess line. Okay. So after you've clipped and smoothed your neck and you've anchored your neck and shoulder intersection, okay, so we're doing this completely wrong because you don't normally drape the back until you've done the front. Okay, so we're just doing this so you know how to drape the back. Because normally what happens is you drape the front, you get it all true, and then your front becomes your trusted piece. So you know exactly where the neck and shoulder is. You know exactly where the end of the shoulder is on the front. So you can tell the back where to go. Because once you have one right thing, it will make other right things. Does that make sense? There's no sense in draping this whole thing. If neither of them are right, then both of them are going to be wrong. But we'll do that for real on Tuesday in the right process. We're just going through so you're familiar with all the different areas. Okay. All right. So to make your shoulder dart, everyone's shoulder dart will be the same length and the same depth. Okay. So from your neck and shoulder going toward the armhole, find your princess seam. And I need you to pick up 1/4 inch on the double. So 1/2 inch of fabric total. So 1/4 inch on either side of your dart. And just land it right on that princess. And sometimes you have to come in front of your mannequin and kind of peek underneath to see if you're on princess. That might help. And then again, just like with the waist dart on the front, you're going to run a pin straight right as where your dart legs would be, or where you would sew the dart legs together. So a straight pin just at the top of the dart on top of that princess line. And you could almost see exactly, if you take your fingers and pinched it, you could almost pinch the dart in position. Right there. So no more than 1/4. Right on the princess, stick one pin in there nice and straight, and then you'll smooth the rest of the armhole toward the end of the shoulder and sink in a pin. Okay. So if you were doing this the right way, your front shoulder would be on here, and you would know exactly where this pin is, that landing spot, and exactly where that landing spot is. Okay.
I feel like I don't have as much room, like as much extra fabric on the shoulder.
You should only have 1/4 inch on the double. So let's see what you got going on. So you're here, right? And then, oh, you gotta, you didn't anchor, did you anchor this yet? Not yet. Oh, we're gonna do this part first, that's right.
Okay.
So find your princess, there she is, and just pick up 1/4, that's all you need, and then the rest just smooths out.
So it's fine. Okay.
That's the magic number. 3, 1/4, and 3 inches is gonna be our magic number, okay? You're welcome. All right, so we've stabilized the top portion of our cross grain, right? By putting in that shoulder dart. Don't worry, you're gonna do it again. If you didn't get it, don't worry, you're gonna do it again, okay? Now we're gonna stabilize the bottom portion of our cross grain, okay? So just like with the front, establish your guideline so it's perpendicular to the waist and put in your pinch of ease, just like you did with the front. Clip on that guideline, cut right on the line a little bit for about 2 inches. And then you can trim away your waistline and start to smooth your waistline. Okay. So we just made your guideline perpendicular to the waist, took a pinch of ease, sliced it on the line to release the tension, and we trimmed about 2 inches off of the bottom. Okay. We didn't show the 3rd class the 12 video, did we, on Tuesday? I don't think we remembered. I think we mentioned it, but we didn't do it. Did I show it to them? I can't remember. I think so too. I think we went. Okay. All right, so after you've done your ease, then you can go ahead and anchor your side seam with a pin under your arm plate. Okay. Again, your front would be there, so you would know exactly where to land that pin because it would go on top of the other arm plate marking from the front panel. You need to trim off 2 inches, clip it out right there, so you release all this tension. So you don't get all these horizontal wrinkles. We're looking for frosting, remember? Frosting. I like her muslin. Oh, I'd have to pull out that other muslin, Kate. It's in my office, that really open weave that's so pretty. Oh. When we pause it the next time, I'll do it. Okay, we're gonna try one more thing. Let you guys look at it, and then we're gonna revisit it again, okay? All right, so you've got your, you planted at the ease, you've snipped a little, you've trimmed a little. So you have about 2 inches below your waist now. You can go ahead and take your finger from your ease mark and just literally smooth it across the waist tape and anchor it at the side seam. Take your finger, smooth it across the waist tape, anchor it at the side seam. Again, your bodice, your front bodice would be there, so you would know exactly to land that on top of the marking for the front bodice. All right. So now your side seam should look pretty smooth right on top of the braid, right? Should be nice and smooth right here. Yeah, okay. Then what do we have left? What's left? The bottom, our dart, okay? So your dart traditionally will land right on the princess, okay? Of course, you can style, once you know how to do it, you can style your dart so that they can angle in different ways. But we're gonna land our dart right on the princess, and it's all the excess. It's the excess from center. This one's easy. You just take your forefinger and your thumb, forefinger at center back, thumb at the ease, squeeze together, and there's your dart on top of the princess. It's that easy for the back one. Just go zoop and grab it. And then just anchor a pin straight up and down to indicate both sides of the dart leg. So for this one, we don't have a guideline for the center dart leg, okay? We'll talk about this when we mark it after we put it back on again. So just keep that in mind. That's the difference between the front bodice and the back bodice. We don't have a guideline for the back dart, okay? That's for a couple of reasons. Some people like the back dart to be completely parallel to center back. Some people like it to tilt ever so slightly. Again, it's a design decision, but we're gonna start really simple, and then you guys can fluctuate your darts after you know how to land them all in the right spot, okay? All right, so I want you to undo your back, smooth it out on the table, and try it one more time. And then after that time, we're gonna put the front on, we're gonna mark it, we're gonna put the back on, and we're gonna start to mark, just so you know where to mark everything, okay? Okay, on screen. We're gonna review the areas to mark so that over the weekend and before next class, you can practice doing all of this on your own, okay? Because when you come in on Tuesday, you can either, if these panels are still pretty good, you can use them again. If you want to start fresh, you might want to start fresh, have those panels ready. We're going to do it the exact correct way. We're going to drape the front. We're going to mark the front. We're going to put it on the table. We're going to true it slightly. We're going to put it back on the mannequin. Drape the back to the front like you're supposed to. Then they both come off on the table. And then all these steps we're going to go over for like a class and a half so that everyone understands these steps. And then you will have a bodice that look like the one that I had on the mannequin this morning. Okay, we're just going to keep practicing and keep practicing. How did your scavenger hunt projects go? I didn't look at them yet. Did you have fun doing those? Okay, great. And also too, as you're practicing over the weekend, start taking some pictures and see how you do. You know, maybe take one today before class is over, to see what it looks like and then what might look like at the end of class on Tuesday. Okay, so re-situate your front bodice. So get it all anchored. So anchored at the neck and shoulder, at the end of the shoulder. Make sure your darts are in position. I won't rush you. It should start to feel a little less awkward, hopefully. And I think also too, maybe as you do your next practices, if you either have the PDF in front of you, just as another kind of reference to hear it from another point of view, because it is the exact same drape that's in that chapter. As I mentioned before, the video is of the shoulder dart, but it's almost the same process. So. And at the end of class, we're going to practice drawing grain lines. Right. Cool. You can probably trim away about 2 inches off of the side of your front if it's too much muslin. And you can trim away at the armhole to start revealing the armhole metal. If it's too much fabric for you, you can start trimming away a little bit. Okay, so when you mark the front, you mark it in a counterclockwise direction, okay? And like I said, you want to keep your muslin as clean as possible. So you want to put just enough marks to connect the dots. So essentially, you're just putting a map on your muslin, okay? Because a lot of it's going to get, a lot of it, like this shows you right here, a lot of this magic happens when it's on the table, okay? All the connecting of the dots. You should use regular pencil. Yep, good question. All right, so we're going to start at the top and go counterclockwise, okay? The first mark is a little 1/4 inch dash right at center front neck. Okay, so if your pin is in your way, move it for a second. You have a nail right there as well to tell you where to mark. So that's your first mark, little dash right at center front neck. Thank you, Kate. Okay. And if you want to mark this one really light, just so you don't over mark it for if you want to practice with it again over the weekend. Okay, again, so you see where the neckline is here at this seam. So feel for that seam on the right side and lightly dot like every 1/2 inch or inch or so. Just give yourself a little indicator of where that neckline seam is with just a few little dots spaced about a 1/2 inch or so apart, just to let you know where that neckline curve is. And you're going to work yourself up all the way to the neck and shoulder intersection. And it's really important to get the front marked really accurate because like I said before, the front talks to the back. So the more right the front is, the more right the back will be. So we go from the cross mark, the little 1/2 inch dash at center front neck, a couple of little dots that hop along the neckline. Then you're going to get to the neck and shoulder intersection and another nail, and that's where you'll put your first X marks the spot, so it's a plus sign. So whenever I say put a cross mark, I mean a plus sign. So you want to show where that intersection is between the two seams coming together. So make sure where those two lines intersect is the landing point of where those seams actually intersect on the mannequin. So they're about 1/4 of an inch long or so. It's just a little T mark or X cross mark to mark where the neck and shoulder intersect. And then you're going to also add a little cross mark at the princess line and shoulder intersection. That's going to serve as a placeholder for where the shoulder dart should sew to, so you'll know exactly they both land on princess. So neck and shoulder cross mark, princess line cross mark, and then the next cross mark is at the end of the shoulder and the top of the armhole. So right at the armhole ridge, you have another cross mark. So she should have 3 little X's or T's going across her shoulder. And if they're marked super accurate, you don't really need to dot in the shoulder because you would just connect all of those midpoints. But if you need to see it, you also can put in a couple little dots just so you know where the shoulder is. So you don't feel like you're looking in an empty space. Okay. All right, so we've done 4 marks so far. Center front, which is just a dash, 3 cross marks, neck and shoulder, princess, end of shoulder, and top of armhole. Okay, next cross mark is where your armhole ridge is, where I had you guys put a mark there across from your screw plate. So mark your armhole cross mark. It's the ridge, it's the center of it's the midpoint of your armhole. So it's right there, almost directly across from the screw plate. Okay. Can't talk. Why did it even ring? It's on off. Sorry, y'all. And then the next cross mark is side seam and under the arm plate. So under the arm plate and then where it intersects with the braid of the side seam is another cross mark. So far, 5 cross marks, 1 dash mark at center front neck. Okay. All right. You don't have to mark the side seam, but if you want to see it, if you have to feel it to see it, you can feel the braid and kind of give yourself a little indication of where that side seam is. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. All right, because you're going to connect those 2 cross marks at the waist in a second, and you're going to get a perfect straight line. So it doesn't matter what your dashes look like, because at the end of the day, it's a ruler and it's 1 line. Okay, so you're going to mark now your bust dart, both sides of your dart legs. So you're going to go up and down with your pin to mark the sew line, and then you're going to mark the intersection of where that hits on the braid of the side seam. So it's a cross mark on one side of the dart, and you flip it up or flip it down, and then you mark the other side. But it's really important to make sure you get a nice, accurate intersection of where the sew line will hit the side seam. That's really important. All right, we're getting there. All right, working your way down from the side seam. Like some people like to actually pin their side seam. And if you pin your side seam, just like with the pinning guidelines I sent you guys or on Canvas, if you like to pin your seams in position, you pin those pins in either horizontally to hold a seam in place, or you pin your pins in at an angle to hold your seams in place, okay? So it's preference. The next cross mark is the bottom of the waist tape. where it intersects with the side seam. So just feel for that bottom of your waist tape. If you can't see your waist tape, some people like to darken it with a pencil if you can't feel it so well or see it so well. So that's a cross mark for sure. And again, that little intersection should be exactly where the waist and the side seam tape, waist tape and side seam come together. Okay. All right. You don't really need to tell the ease where the ease was because you know it lands on the guideline, but if you want to, you can put a little E there. Then you're going to dot the bottom of the waist tape with a few little dots scattered across the bottom, right on the bottom. One time when I taught the class, the students liked to mark the top and the bottom of the waist tape, so they knew it like a little mini waistband, so they knew exactly where to put their bodice back on again. So I let them mark top and bottom, but we really need to only mark the bottom. Okay. All right. Okay. Then mark both sides of your waist dart legs the same way you did the bust dart. So, and I like to mark the inside of the pin versus the outside of the pin. It just helps prevent your bodice getting too tight when you sew your darts. That little bit of, that 1/32 of air all the way around 4 times makes a big difference, you know? So I like to mark take my pencil lead and put it on the inside of the dart leg versus on the outside of the dart leg. And then cross mark where it intersects with the waist. We're almost done. All right. And then the rest of the waist, and then again, another little 1/4 inch dash right at the bottom of the waist tape at center front. And your front is marked. Okay. So you can work with this one. You can practice a whole nother one and keep this one as reference to see how much better the other one looks. As long as you have a working one for Tuesday is the requirement. Okay. And if you want to put a little E for your ease or mark where your ease was at your chest level, you can do that as well. All right. That's all the communication you need to give yourself, right? You don't need to over communicate the markings. Okay. All right. Now just to review for the back, because when we do this on Tuesday, your front will be all drawn out. Okay. But let's just review what you would mark different on the back that you wouldn't mark from the front. Okay. So just get your front out of your way for a moment. And let's look at the back again. Okay. Let me get my back in position. All right, great. And then my little dart. All right, so we're going to start at the top of the neck for the back, and we're going to go clockwise instead of counterclockwise for the back. Okay. So your first mark is a 1/4 inch dash at the center back neck, just like we did for the front. Sorry, I'm getting my bodice back on. All right. And then what's the next one we did on the front after we did the neck? What's the next thing if we're going clockwise? Dotting along the neckline. Thank you. Is that Arba? Thank you. All right. So you can put a light mark at your neck and shoulder intersection, but you would, on Tuesday, you'll have your front under there. But if you want to just have it there for practice, you can go ahead and mark your neck and shoulder intersection. Okay. All right. You would follow the dots of the trued shoulder on the front, but you still need to mark the dart legs for the shoulder dart. So you would mark the dart legs for the shoulder dart the same way. So you would mark up and down for the leg, and then a cross mark for where it hits the shoulder line. And the length we do on the table. And then again, your front bodice would be on the mannequin. So that cross mark at the shoulder and arm plate would transfer from the front onto the back. But if you want to just mark yours for now, because you've been draping it, that's fantastic. You don't have to mark your armhole ridge for the back armhole because you put that mark on there already when we were prepping the panel. So that mark is right there already. We had to mark it on the front, but you don't have to mark it on the back. All right. And then for the underarm plate and side seam, again, the front would be there. You would transfer it, but if you want to just mark it for your reference for today for practice, you can put it on there so you can put it back on. Your front dart would be on the mannequin, and you would end up putting a notch to join the back there, but we'll do that on Tuesday, just so you know that there's a placement there to hold the side seams so they tell them where to go back together. You would also transfer the waistline and side seam cross mark from the front. So if you want to mark it on your back today, it's fun to, it's the reason I'm having you mark them today. It's just, I want to see how close you guys get to marking them as separate panels and see how they actually line up, because it's funny how they just don't always line up to the front. So it's a good little experiment. You do need to dot in the back waist on its own. And the ease line, you know, is at the guideline. And then the big difference is that the dart doesn't have a center dart leg for the back. So you have to mark not only the dart leg with the cross mark, but you have to mark the center of the dart. So you have to like either give it a good crease or run your pencil lead right over top of it so that you can find it again. Okay, so that's the difference from the front and the back. You're gonna mark both dart legs the same, but you have to mark the center dart leg with either a crease or run your pencil up and down so you can find it again. And then you'll dot in the rest of your waist. And at the bottom of the tape at the end of the back, you just put another 1/4 inch dash, just like you did at the front waist. Okay, the dart gets trued on the table. All right, so that's all the markings. It's a lot of them, right? Okay. We're doing great too on time. All right, so just to review, when you come in on Tuesday, have your best front, okay? Have your back, I'll write this up too so I can send it out for review. Your best front. If you want to make a fresh panel, so it's your best front drape. You don't have to mark. If you want to mark it, you can. If you want, we can mark it again in class. All right, we're going to go over all of that. We'll review. Have a back panel prepared, so all the lines drawn in. You can practice drawing your straight grains. Have this line drawn in. Have this line marked. And if you want to start, you can, but don't mark the back because we're going to mark the back with the front next time. So definitely just have the back panel ready. Okay, so just the back panel. But you should practice draping the back so you get really good at it. We can move a little faster in class. Okay. And then take some pictures. You take one today, maybe at the end of class, and then take one on Tuesday, and let's see how big of a learning curve that we had. And then, yeah, just review the PDF. Listen to Miss Carlotti. You'll hear somebody else talk about it in a different way, so that you're getting information from different points of view. I think it's great. I mean, she might be better than me. I don't know. You know, you might like the way that's presented. It's totally fine. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay. I think that's it. That's due for Tuesday. Yeah. Perfect. And so now, if you all want to practice drawing straight grains, I can get some more, some practice muslin up here. I can come around to each of you. And then those of you at home, if you want to watch again, it's just a piece of practice muslin. Okay, so you can only draw straight grain. You can't draw cross grain. And Prisma color pencil draws really nice because it's so soft and waxy. But you need to have a pencil that's not super sharp. So it's going to be a little rounded at the tip. And essentially you just find a thread, and I go up, some people pull down, and just hold the pencil at a slight angle and just find that thread, and don't try too hard. Just let the pencil ride on that thread, and then you can make perfect pinstripes. Make sure the table is clear of any dust, debris, or whatever. It's so relaxing, guys. I can tell you, it's like Zen. And then the difference with the Prisma pencil is it's so soft. It just glides across that muslin. So I'm gonna take this little panel around and see if you guys can try it, and then you can practice it as well. If you're really good at it, you've just saved yourself pulling grain. If you're not good at it, you have to keep pulling grain until you get good at it. Okay. So you want to take this around to them, and or you want to help Kennedy? Which one would you want to do? Okay. All right. Are you guys good at home?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm glad I won't have to be pulling grains anymore. Good one.
Okay, and I'm gonna good.
The other day, but
Gotcha. And I'm gonna do another follow-up like I did on Tuesday, class follow-up, to let everybody know what to do for next Tuesday. Okay. All right. Thanks, you all. Have a good weekend.
bye. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye. You too.